Hello everybody. Having completed chapter number 2 from Hornbill, we are not afraid to die if we can all be together. It is time we start chapter number 3 in succession. Discovering Tut, the saga continues. The title you see is very grand and seems to be mysterious and quite intriguing at the same time. Yes, there is an element of horror. This is a kind of thriller movie that you watch, and there is always an element of suspense, and that will prevail till the very last. I'm sure, dear students, you'll all be very earnest to know what happens next. As soon as I read any line, you'll be curious to jump to the next line to find out the ultimate truth. But what is it? What is the chapter about? Let me give you a little flash about it, though I'll not tell you all. Discovering Tut. Tut is the king. He was the king of Egypt. Now, when the word Egypt strikes, so many images have must have flashed up in your mind. You must have pictured and the images of pyramids, mummies. Yes, and most of you must have seen the movie based on mummies, The Mummy 1 and then The Mummy Returns. 80% of the students I have seen, they are too interested in this subject of how the Egyptian people, how they would mummify their deads, and why at all would they mummify their dead. Like in Muslim culture, like in other cultures, they would not, bury the dead. They would not cremate the dead. Rather, they would preserve the dead and would mummify it. What was the reason? What was the ultimate cause behind this belief? We'll find it all today in the chapter. Discovering Tut. Now, what was the discovery about? Actually, we are talking about the king of Egypt, Tutankhamun. The king was Tutankhamun, shortened as Tut, who reigned in 13th century, dear students, some 3300 years ago, and his tomb was discovered by American archaeologist Howard Carter in 1922, and amazing and startling discoveries were made. Some startling facts came to the surface about his death and about his life. Because the boy, that's why I'm using the word boy, the Pharaoh, because such was the title given to the king in Egypt, Pharaoh, Pharaoh. I'm sorry, the spelling is Pharaoh. Pharaoh. In American accent, it is called Pharaoh. In British, it is called Pharaoh. So we would be pronouncing it as Pharaoh. So the boy king died at an early age, but how he died is still, even today, an element of mystery. Nothing is known because, especially at that time, the medical science was not that advanced. We did not have equipments like CT scan. So there are mysteries still lingering about his life and death. That is why there is a subtitle, The Saga Continues. Saga means a long and complicated story. The story continues, the mystery continues. It is not known till date when the king died, how old he was when he died, and how he died. Even the modern forensic is not able to solve this biggest puzzle of all times. So that created a sensation in the world, and that has created a sensation in the world even today. But more importantly, okay, let me flash myself off the screen, otherwise the size would be too big. Okay, so now the question is, why would the Egyptians they preserve their dead? Why would they not bury it along at the time of the death? Why would they not bury the dead? Why would they not cremate it like Hindus do? Why would they preserve? What was the belief? What was the underlying idea behind it? The idea was that uh, the Egyptian people they believed that one could take riches along with him in the second life. Yes, the concept was afterlife because Egyptians believed that there is a life after death, which they called second life and which they called afterlife. They believed in resurrection, a rebirth, right? So, discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb containing his mummified body, numerous artifacts in gold, articles of daily use like precious oils, perfumes, clothes, it all created a furore in the world. The credit for the discovery of Tut's tomb and its glittering treasure goes to Howard Carter, who had been digging in the Valley of Kings for the last 15 years unsuccessfully, and finally he got success after 15 years of futile effort and when he found the tomb. But he found the tomb damaged to a great extent. The body was actually damaged, or he imparted some damage to the body. This is all to be seen through the story. So let me quickly start from para 1. Before that, these are some expressions that are used in the chapter, which are very, very important for you to learn beforehand. Forensic reconstruction. Now, this word you must have come across number of times. What is forensic? Forensic is a science that deals with medical investigation, right? So forensic is a science. Then scudded across. Scudded means to move fast across. Okay, move quite swiftly. Casket gray is here a gray coffin or a grim coffin, you may say. Casket is a box in which dead body is kept. Now, very, very important word for this chapter is resurrection, rebirth, rising from the dead. Resurrection is life after death, or rising from the dead to come alive again. Resurrection, this is very, very, very important word for this chapter, dear students, because this is what we are talking about here. This is what Egyptians believed in. Funerary treasures. At the time of the death, especially when one belongs to the royal family, they would bury the dead, they would preserve the dead and would bury great deal of ornaments and valuables and riches along with the dead, right? Because they believed in life after death. So artifacts in gold, ivory, and objects of daily use buried with the mummies in Egypt, and those were called funerary treasures, means treasures that were buried at the time of funeral. Now then comes circumvented, means to ditch, to cheat, to escape under the nose, or to dodge is called circumvent, right? Outwit somebody, outsmart somebody. Computed tomography, this is very simple in medical science. This equipment that gives the X-ray in three-dimensional structure that scans the body and puts out images in 3 dimensions is called computed tomography technique, and we call it CT scan. Every detail means every minute detail, and that is unbelievable at the same time, dear students. Ari means affected with fear and exciting fear, right? So let us start with the chapter. Hmm. So one thing is to be learned here that Egyptians, they believed in life after death. I'm repeating it again and again, and that is why they would bury so many riches, golds, and other things, other valuable things, along with the daily essentials, because they thought the person would need all these things in the afterlife, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me. Okay, there we go. So we are talking about the boy king, King Tut. Tutankhamun was the name. He was just a teenager when he died. He was the last heir. Yes, this word is to be pronounced as heir, not higher. The last heir means successor of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. And he was laid to rest means he died and he was mummified, laden with full of gold and eventually forgotten, as is the custom of the world, that people, once they die, irrespective of how lovable they were, they are ultimately forgotten once they die. And similarly, even if he was a king, he too was forgotten. But at the time of the death, he was laid to rest, he was mummified, and he was laden with lot of gold, and other treasures, along with daily essentials. Since the discovery of his tomb in 1922, now this is to be noted. When was the tomb first discovered and by whom? The tomb of King Tut, that pyramid, was discovered first in 1922. And since its discovery, the modern world has speculated about has what happened to the king, how he died, and murder being the most extreme possibility. Most of them are of the opinion that he was murdered and it was not a natural death. Now, leaving his tomb for the first time in almost 80 years, Tut has undergone a CT scan that offers new clues about his life and death. Leaving his tomb, yes, he was taken out of his tomb for the first time in almost 80 years. Why 80 years written here? That I will explain you later. I'll reconnect it. Uh, he left the tomb, means he was taken out of his resting place for the first time in 80 years. And Tut has undergone a CT scan. Why he was taken out? To CT scan the mummified body. Why was he to be CT scanned? To find out answers to the two lingering mysteries about King Tut. One was, when did he die and how old he was when he died. So that offers new clues about his life and death and provides precise data, means accurate data for an accurate forensic reconstruction. Forensic, I told you, a science that deals with investigation of legal medical matters is forensic science. So for forensic reconstruction of the boyish pharaoh, boyish because he was a boy, he was young when he died, and pharaoh was the king. I hope it is clear. Now the chapter starts here actually. Having read the preface, let us read the gist of it. An angry wind stirred up the ghostly dust devils as King Tut was taken from his resting place in the ancient Egyptian cemetery known as the Valley of the Kings. Yes, I initially also I used this word Valley of Kings. He was buried in the Valley of Kings. Now, Valley of Kings was the cemetery, a place where dead are buried or kept, and it was the place where especially the dead of kings or royal family were kept. So that is why it was uh, termed as the Valley of the Kings. Now, what happened when King Tut's body was being taken out of the tomb for the first time after 80 years? The weather changed, the weather worsened, it became horrendous and terrible. The ghostly dust devils started stirring up when he was taken out from his resting place. In what was his resting place? The ancient Egyptian cemetery, which is known as the Valley of Kings. Dark bellied clouds. Bellied, you understand? Belly is used for a part of stomach. Protruding belly, as an obese person or a corpulent person with a protruding stomach. The clouds also had protruding bellies. So dark bellied clouds means as if they were containing a lot of water inside and a lot of anger at the same time. Dark bellied clouds had scudded across. We have already studied what scudded means. So they were moving fast as if angry in the desert sky. There was nothing else visible in the sky. That is why it is written as desert sky all day. And now they were veiling the stars in the cascade gray. Veiling means covering. Now the clouds were covering the stars as if the casket covers the dead body. It was 6 p.m. on 5 January 2005. The world's most famous mummy, King Tut's mummy, glided headfirst, means to move into or slip into. It was slipped into the CT scanner. The CT scanner that was brought here to probe, to look into, probe means to look into, to solve the lingering, means loitering, unsolved medical mysteries of this little understood young ruler who died more than 3,300 years ago. I've already told you why he was to be CT scanned. To solve two lingering mysteries, medical mysteries. Let me check the time, dear students. It's 15 minutes and almost 16 minutes. Let me cover this paragraph as well. All afternoon, the usual line of tourists. So when he was discovered, tourists came from around the world and they had descended, means to step down, to climb down. Yes, because it was below the surface of the earth. So they had descended into the cramped. Cramped means very, very congested with not much space, without enough room, in a confined space. In a confined, constricted rock cut tomb. Yes, his tomb was erected out of rock and some 26 feet underground they had to go down. Yes, because the tomb was there underground and that too 26 feet deep, and they were descending down the steps to see and to pay their respects to the boyish pharaoh. They gazed at the murals. Murals means the wall paintings. They were staring, people, the visitors, on the walls of the burial chamber where the dead was buried or kept, and they were peered to look at something with astonishment. They peered at Tut's gilded face. Gilded means covered with gold plating or plated with gold. Yes. So that was the most striking feature of the mummy-shaped outer coffin lid. You must have seen the casket, the coffin is also given the shape of the human body. So it was all made of pure gold. So that was the face was the most striking feature. And the tourists, the visitors, they were peering in astonishment. Some visitors, they read from the guidebooks in whisper, they were murmuring, they were reading more and more about the king. Others, what were they doing? They were standing silently. They were perhaps pondering over, contemplating, thinking about King Tut's untimely death in his late teens, perhaps 19, wondering with a shiver if the Pharaoh's curse. Yes, now this is very, very important point. Yes, Pharaoh, there was believed to be Pharaoh's curse. Yes, what was that Pharaoh's curse? That curse and death and misfortune will befall upon those who would disturb King Tut. And some visitors were wondering if it was really true. And if it was true, they were under the clouds. Yes, it was believed to be Pharaoh's curse that anyone who would disturb Pharaoh from its resting place and sleep, a curse would befall upon them. So visitors, they were wondering if it was really true. So it is all for today, dear students. We'll continue it tomorrow from here. Till then, have a nice time. Thank you.